Hello and welcome back. This is Penny Sansevieri and Amy Cornell, and this is the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. And I have to tell y'all, I love your feedback. Keep it coming. We love your show ideas. We love that you love the show and even suggesting improvements. We have no ego about stuff, mostly, I think. But we are really, really, really excited about we're really excited about the about this show in particular and all of our shows really. And Amy, we also have. Do you want to talk a little bit about the promo that we have up right now? We switched it up from "Can This Book Be Saved?" because we felt like it was intimidating people.
Right. So now we're taking it down a little more specific to everybody what you're struggling with. So please send us notes on what you're currently struggling with in regards to marketing or book promotion. Just try to keep it concise, something more specific that we could really speak to. If you want to remain anonymous, please let us know. Otherwise, we would like to reference your book, give you a little exposure as well. But please know that realistically, you're not alone. Whatever you're struggling with, there's probably lots of listeners that are struggling with the same thing. So like Penny said, this is a little less intimidating, a little less like spotlight right on you. Because a lot of the problems authors had are widespread of things that need to be learned and figured out and sorted through and things like that. So definitely email us. That kind of information's in the show notes. Send us ideas on what we could cover, and we'll answer them during our shows.
Yeah, and I want to just add to that whenever I teach classes, it's always hardest to get the first person to raise their hand. Once the first person asks a question, everybody else seems to feel, a little bit more comfortable, I think, just about nobody wants to look silly. And trust me, there is no such thing as a stupid question ever. So so I always encourage that. And we encourage you to send us your biggest marketing challenges. So this show, we're always excited about all of our shows. But I think this show was born out of a post that I found on Facebook. And it was for a group that shall remain nameless. And basically the person asked the question, how much do you spend on editing your book? And Amy and I were a little taken aback by some of the responses. One person said, nothing, because I don't sell enough books to make it worthwhile. And I sound like I'm questioning that because it's just very confusing to me. So we decided to create this particular show. And it's really, I think Amy, you want to talk a little bit more about why the importance of the show, not just for the editing post, but also just to give folks a little bit more background.
Right. So when authors reach out to us and they want to explore a potential collaboration, I always want to go and see if their book is published. I definitely want to see it on Amazon. I want to check out their website real quick. If they brag about their social, if the book's not out, but they have other books, then I also look at their Author Central, things like that. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot, like marketing is absolutely critical to your long-term success. But at the same time, it can't overcome a number of things that just really need to be very solid. Otherwise, you're kind of spinning your wheels, so to speak, in regards to what you're investing in marketing, whether it's your just time and energy or an investment in hiring a team to help support you as well. So if there aren't some really key elements that are in place and, all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, then again, marketing can only take you so far. And so we get a lot of that where people just get frustrated. They get to the end of their rope and they're like, okay, maybe I just need to hire a team to fix all this stuff for me. And, Penny and I are usually really honest with people to let them know that we can do this, but there are limits, right?
Yeah. And, it's not about the fact that we don't want to work with somebody if they're dealing with some of these things, because, and I know this firsthand, publishing a book is really hard. And I'm sure that I will use some recent examples from book to bestseller, which is still not yet published for reasons that I want to beat my head against the wall. Publishing a book is really hard, right? So I think that shortcuts seem appealing. And there are some shortcuts that I think that you can take that don't impact the quality of your book, because sometimes we do overcomplicate. Like the author who thinks, oh, I have to be on every single social media channel, right? And I think we've disabused people of that notion in prior podcasts. But I think that and I know Amy feels very, very strongly about this too. We always want to have your best interest in mind as a marketing company, and we always want to see clients succeed. So when we give constructive feedback on this book cover could be stronger, it's really just to push an author to be better. And many times, I think Amy has had this conversation with authors where you've suggested, Amy, to make some cover changes that people are super receptive to.
Yeah, definitely. I will say more often than not, when I give constructive feedback very early on, and kind of, again, being straight up honest, like, yes, we'd love to work with you. We see a lot of potential here, but there are some really simple things you can do right now that will really make our collaboration even that much more productive. And most people, like I said, are shocked that we actually give them those tips and feedback up front before we get started, versus kind of keeping everything so close to the chest. It's like, no, we want to see you succeed. Why would we hide, really simple things you could do to make our entire collaboration that much more productive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So Amy, do you want to take the first one? Because I know that you feel, strongly about this one in particular.
Yeah, definitely. So marketing can't fix blurred genre lines. And this is tough because a lot of authors, predominantly fiction authors, is when we see this, get an idea or inspiration for a story and they just run with it. And while that kind of artistic freedom sounds really amazing, it can really bite you in the ass when it comes time to market your book, because the reality is consumers in general want to buy and read a sure thing. And you're much more likely to convince them that you're a sure thing if you can align your book with themes and tropes that they already like and that they already understand and that they're already buying. Like, do you see all these connections here? You're making the choice to click buy that much simpler for them. So if you can't clearly communicate what kind of readers you wrote for, your marketing is going to kind of fall flat, because there's going to be very few people that actually fully resonate with your book and what you're trying to say. So if you contact us and say, I don't really know what my genre is, it doesn't mean you don't have one. But if you're still kind of wrestling with this and you can't really decide how to place your book, that's probably why your marketing is falling a little flat and you're not selling as many of them, is because you just don't have a clear idea of what to tell people about what you've created.
Absolutely. One of the telltale signs, as Amy mentioned, is if you can't effectively communicate your genre. And a lot of times authors come to us and they say, well, my book is in actually 3 genres. That's not always a red flag, because sometimes you may have a book that is sitting in, that has subgenres to it. And that's not unreasonable, but you need to have a absolute primary genre, and your book should adhere to the standards of that genre. And the second one that I feel so passionate about is lack of editing. And I was really surprised at this post that I shared with Amy, how many folks said that they just weren't spending money on editing. Or they were, they were self-editing or something like that. And I can tell you that I really feel your pain. I loathe the editing process more than I can actually articulate on this podcast. I've had From Book to Bestseller now edited 3 times, and it still needs a copy edit. And maybe that speaks to the fact that I'm a terrible writer and that I need to have people make me look good. And if that's the case, then I will embrace that, because you cannot hide, no matter how great your book cover is, you cannot hide typos and what that's actually, and to me, it's disrespectful to your reader if you serve them up a book that has not been thoroughly edited, because it's distracting to the experience. And what it does is it tells readers that you're really not, that you don't care and that you're not paying attention. And one of the biggest challenges that I think authors face is that they have to sort of figure out where to spend their dollars when they're putting out a book. Editing is one of the first places that authors will cut, which always amazes me. Because editing is an investment in this story or this nonfiction book that you created that really speaks to whether or not your readers are going to love the book.
I love that. That's a really good point. And I think what you hit on is how much it does speak to how invested you are in what you've done. And whether that was your intention or not, doesn't matter. You don't get a chance to explain yourself once the book is up there,
Right.
that ship has sailed. And so along with that, that's a great lead in, is that marketing also can't fix a bad book cover.
Mm-hmm.
And bad is an umbrella term. So the cover may be well done artistically, actually, but maybe it just doesn't have the right look or feel for the genre that you're trying to compete in. Or, of course, there's just covers that are just unprofessional looking because the author made it themselves in a program that's not really designed to make book covers, or they have a friend or associate who actually does design work, but just doesn't understand the book buying market enough to produce a cover that is appropriate for that genre. So a bad book cover is not something that marketing can fix, because marketing essentially is getting you exposure, sending people there. Once they're there, if that cover doesn't work, you're dead in the water. And it's very hard to recover from that instant, that first impression that they get.
Yeah, absolutely true. The upside of that is that thus far, we have not addressed anything that can't be fixed. Like if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my book needs a new cover, it needs a new edit. These are all things that you can fix even post-launch. I mean, ideally, you want to have this all done. You want to have your ducks in a row before the book launches, but sometimes it just happens that you think I could have done better on this book cover. The other piece kind of along with that is the title and subtitle of the book. So just like your cover, titles and subtitles really need to fit in your genre and topic. And something that happens is that authors get, and I understand that you're very close to this, like I get it, but your title should evoke something, right? So evokes emotion or benefits. And then, in terms of the subtitles, I'm always amazed at how many authors still don't use subtitles, which is a huge mistake. And we've talked about this in our Amazon podcast, even if you don't have a subtitle in your book, you can still add one to your Amazon book page. But a descriptive subtitle can be one of your strongest pulls when it comes to convincing a shopper to stick around long enough to read your book description, which I know Amy is going to address next. Really, really, really important title and subtitle. And the other thing that I want to just leave you with in terms of the title is don't create a title that's too difficult to pronounce. It's one thing if your characters have complex names, and that's fine, but your title should not be intimidating to your readers. So just kind of leave that there. Amy, do you want to take the book description one? Because I know you evaluate a lot of book descriptions that come in.
Yeah. And this is, Penny, you mentioned this earlier, a lot of this stuff is fixable. And, a lot of these things are something that a good marketing team can help you with. A lot of marketing teams will do consulting or coaching on copy and things like that. So that is an option. You're not out there doing this on your own. In fact, we usually recommend you don't do this on your own because, as you said, Penny, it's very easy to get too close to your own work to be objective about these kind of things. But you also have to be willing to take recommendations and the feedback and put it into action. So book descriptions are quite literally product descriptions. Think of anything you purchase. You read about it. You read about the features. You read about the materials, the ingredients, whatever it is you're buying. Few of us buy things that that we're not familiar with without reading about it. And that's what your book description is. So you can't slack there. If you're going to buy anything else, not book related, and the description of the product is incomplete or unconvincing or just lackluster, you're going to move on. And people do the same thing with books all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. The next one is social media. So if you hire somebody to do your social media, that's great. But a lackluster social media presence it's something that you really need to address, because what we're talking about here is that if you're handling your social media and you hate social, So you figure I'll hire a marketing team to do other things so I can pretend my social doesn't matter. That won't work. And it's not about, I talked about this in the beginning, right? It's not about being everywhere. It's about being everywhere that matters. So even if you're only on one social site, as long as you have some kind of a robust presence there, once you're out there on social, especially if you're sending people to your accounts via your website, your Author Central, et cetera, then, you've got to keep these pages updated. And what we mean by a lackluster social media presence is that if you check out of your social, and I get that social media is challenging, right? You have to find a way to sort of dip your toe into it without getting consumed by the news feed and getting over to somebody's pages and posting a comment or getting upset or something, because half of what's on Facebook really annoys me anyway. I just say that. But I think that you want to remember that everything is your resume. So your social media should be part of that resume to sell a book. And you want to, don't promote things that you're not proud of. It's very easy to feel compelled to take some kind of a stance, maybe even with something that's controversial. Think before you do that, because that is, you could offend some people that may be interested in buying your book. Your social media is sort of the storefront, much like your website is, which I know Amy's going to talk about too. So either be on social media or don't be on social media, but you can't just show up once a week and post something and then leave. You also have to figure out what your readers resonate with and then engage with them on social media, which is why I say you're much better off being on one site than being everywhere. And I wrote a blog post for Writers in the Storm, blog, which is great. And it was all about different things that you could do, related to, simple marketing tactics. And somebody said, so in regards to social media, should I hop on TikTok? And I know you and I, Amy, talked about this in our video podcast, I think it was last year. It's very easy to want to jump into something that feels new, like Clubhouse. It feels new and exciting and everything. Find your zone in social media and then stick with that. You can absolutely explore it, but don't feel like you have to get sucked into everything. And I'm sort of a bad example of that, because when Clubhouse first started, I sent it to Amy. I said, hey, I got my profile. What do you want to do on Clubhouse? And she came back to me and she said, do you really want to be on Clubhouse too? And I think Clubhouse is great, but you have to find the things that you actually have the time to thoughtfully attend to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because I know you're our social media guru here. That maybe should have been your talking point, but
no, not at all. I think it makes more sense that you discussed it, because you understand, like, there's a reason that it takes a village for our social. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a lot of work. It's a lot going on. And one person, if you are going at this alone, if you're doing a DIY approach to your marketing, the idea that you can manage multiple social accounts in addition to all your other book marketing, and assuming you actually have a life and maybe a family and a job and like all these other things going on, it's just unrealistic. And you're putting unrealistic expectations on yourself, which we all kind of know how that ends up, and it's not good. So set yourself up for success by making smart choices about it too. And so the next one, as Penny mentioned, is marketing can't fix not having a website. So the whole point of marketing is to get exposure to more readers, more potential buyers. So the way you have to look at it is that not having a website means your relationship with that person can only go so far, especially if you're not on social media. So if you're not a big social media person and you don't have a website, you have to be realistic about where, eventually it just drops off. You can't communicate with these people anymore. So while we work with a lot of new authors who don't have their websites established in time for their first book release, and that's totally fine, that's understandable. The stars don't always align the way we'd like them to. And yes, everything costs money. You really should have it on your shortlist to get even a basic, just professional looking website up before your second release. Because a big part of marketing is that networking aspect and keeping people coming back for more. And your website gives you a lot of opportunities to make that happen. Keep people in your funnel, kind of, cash in on those return buyers and things like that. So really a website is a long-term success tool. So, don't put it off for too long. Don't beat yourself over the head if you're ready to get that book out there and it's not fully, if your website's not fully fleshed out, but hold yourself to a schedule to get it done.
Yeah. And I also want to say too that, and because I just wrote a blog post on why you don't necessarily have to have a website when you launch a book. There are lots and lots of free places. Squarespace, I think, is one that does free websites. You could even just get a landing page that has your bio on it and a way for people to contact you until you're ready to put in the effort to get, until you have the money, I guess I should say. Effort and money sort of go hand in hand to get that website up there. Exactly. The other piece of this is the other marketing element that can't fix a lack of publishing education. And I think that this is a kind of another situation where a marketing team may offer you some education if you're willing to pay for it and put in the time. But if that's not where your head is at, and you could go to writers' conferences and you could listen to podcasts like this one, marketing won't absolve you from being clueless about publishing things forever. And part of the reason why this is important is because you want to make educated choices about your future. And I think that, it's important to know the landscape, right? So releasing a book is starting a business, and you have to commit to having a working knowledge of what you're doing, because otherwise it won't last long. And this is another thing too, right? I think that as authors, we often feel intimidated to ask questions, right? So when a publisher is come to you and say, hey, Amy, I'd like to publish your new thriller book, or in Amy's case, it would probably be true crime. I want to publish your, Amy's going to ask, because she's also been in the industry she's going to ask them some questions. She's going to want to know why she should publish with them over, let's say, self-publishing or whatever. Educating yourself is really, really, really important. It will help you not just in your marketing efforts, but it'll help you to make really smart choices. So I think, and that's really what all of this is about making smart choices for the success of you and your book.
Absolutely. And this goes hand in hand with kind of this next point, is that marketing can't fix a lack of ownership. And what we mean by that is that we appreciate that most authors have other jobs, like I said, families, commitments, all the things, and writing and releasing a book is a lot of work, as Penny absolutely knows. And I know just from being, in the vicinity of. Once you hire your marketing team, it's easy to fall in the trap of thinking like, oh my gosh, my work here is done. I've sent them their money. Thank God. But that's actually so far from the truth. Like, I hate being the one to burst that bubble.
Yeah.
But, a good marketing team will help you uncover areas that you can improve on. And we provide our clients with a lot of tips and suggestions and even how-to videos and things like that. And we do coaching and consulting for deeper, more specific topics that they want to cover, or issues that they're dealing with, like how to access and manage your Amazon account, your Goodreads account, navigating BookBub. I mean, these are just a handful of examples. But if you have zero interest in learning about book marketing at all, then we have to be honest and let you know that you better have a really big budget to pay for someone to do absolutely everything for you for as long as you plan to sell books.
Yeah.
You really have to let that sink in, because marketing for 2 or 3 weeks doesn't cover the life of your book. I hate to say that,
Right.
So there is an element of ownership in this that you have to have if you want to take this seriously, and if you want to have a long-term career as an author.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely true. And I think the next thing that's worth mentioning is an inconsistent publishing schedule. Now, you may say, well, but Penny, I only have one book that I want to publish. Fine. But I think that as an author, just like other businesses, your fans, clients, buyers, whatever you want to call them, they expect you to keep coming up with more generally. So keep up the marketing, and certainly don't let that fall flat. But honestly, if it's taking you a while to get your next book out, marketing becomes even more critical. So to get people, to keep people interested, but your marketing is going to get easier and less stressful, and sales will be consistent once you have a consistent publishing schedule and you'll have a new title to promote and entice return buyers with. Now, with a publishing schedule, let me tell you that, and I'm not giving you an out here on publishing schedules, but publishing schedules can be flexible, right? So before you tell your reader, my next book is coming out on July 1, you'd better have your cover, like you'd better have everything in place. I don't want you telling your readers, these are the exact publishing dates, unless you know without fail that you can absolutely hit those dates. So typically, what I suggest is that figure out, like if you've written a series, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, or if you have even outside of a series, you have another idea for a book, just, give yourself a little bit of, because there's always sort of the Murphy's Law of, I had no idea that my book was going to require 4 edits, but apparently it does, which delayed the release of this book. There are going to be delays, but you should have an idea. You really want to create some kind of a roadmap that you have targets that you can hit so that your readers know that you have more books coming out and when to expect them. And then as you get more certainty, so the book is in its final copy edit, let's say the cover's done, and you know that now you're maybe 60 days from launch date, then you can start to ramp up your marketing. But a consistent publishing schedule will really, really help you, because otherwise readers move on very quickly. I'm always surprised at how fast readers lose interest. So I think it's important. And as I said, you may not have exact dates, and that's fine, but if at the very least, create something where you say, I'm publishing 2 times a year, or I'm publishing 4 times a year if you have a ton of time. So I hope that everyone got a lot out of this, because I think marketing is absolutely game-changing tool to your long-term plan. But to get the most out of marketing, you really want to nail these critical points. And this really is about not necessarily sort of shaming you into doing better, because we never want to do that, but we want to see you succeed. And your marketing will be so much better if you're hitting, if you're hitting these, if you're not overlooking these points.
That's absolutely true. And, as Penny said, like, we're not trying to shame you. Not really. I maybe kind of, I can own that. But only because if you write us, you hear from me first, and you're already going to hear it. So let's just throw that out there. I will let you know. But she's right. It is because we want you to succeed. And we do know that these things matter. So we're not going to keep that a secret from you. In that regard, it's all out on the table. But, don't stress about it, because if we've mentioned a few things that you're struggling with, that's totally normal. You're definitely not alone. And we encourage you to consult with a marketing person or a marketing team that a lot of people will help you create kind of a plan of action, or help you kind of organize what's chaotic about everything you have going on right now, and kind of give you a roadmap to follow. I know we can do that for you. There's a lot of other great people out there that can offer similar advice as well. But it is that first step in saying, like, okay, I'm going to fix these things. Like, that's a huge important step, is just finally saying, like, okay, no more excuses. I'm going to fix these few things and see where that takes me, and just taking that, that initial way forward.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned previously, nothing that we talked about on the show today is doomsday necessarily. Like, it's all fixable. It's all stuff that you can go back and say, okay, I didn't do that right the first time. I'm going to go back and fix this cover, or get have the book re-edited or whatever. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Penny Sansevieri and Amy Cornell, and this is the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. Oh my gosh, I literally almost stumbled over the show name, Amy. I don't know why I keep doing that.
You really pulled it off. You were being very honest by admitting that.
I'm like, oh my gosh, wait.
I know, apparently we're all about being honest.
I know. What's the name of our show again? We're so busy on just throwing out all this information that sometimes we fumble, but we're always very honest. And again, we really appreciate the feedback. We would love a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.